Special thanks to the town of Vail for their support of the Vail Dance Festival and Conversations on Dance live podcast recordings. This episode was recorded live at the Manor Vail Lodge. I'm Rebecca King Ferraro.
And I'm Michael Sean Breeden, and you're listening to Conversations on Dance. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Michael Sean Breeden. I'm one of the hosts of the podcast Conversations on Dance, and I am so lucky today to be joined by two of my favorite past guests, New York City Ballet principal Sara Mearns and choreographer Pam Tanowitz. Thank you both for coming out this morning to talk to me.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
So what I love about having you guys on the show, I feel like it's similar from both of you, is that I get a real sense, like who I view you as an artist. I hear that in the interview. So like, for instance, Sara, you know, I feel like your performances are characterized by like a fearlessness, determination. And the very first story you ever told on my podcast, I think just like perfectly encapsulates that, which is the Swan Lake premiere, which was your first role, principal role ever. Mm-hmm. It's the most daunting role in the entire rep, but you also had a pretty crazy run leading up to that weekend. I just wonder if we could like give that story another
chance.
Let's reacquaint ourselves with that story.
Let's see. I don't know how I remember telling it, but like a couple months before it happened, I had taken some time away from City Ballet and like gone home, and then I came back and we were rehearsing Nutcracker, and I had never done anything like soloist, principal, nothing. I was just in the corps. I was just doing Snow and Flowers for Nutcracker. But they started rehearsing Swan because we were doing it in the winter season in February. And so we started like rehearsing diverse months for it, and I was being called to that and whatever. And then one day the rehearsal schedule went up and my name was at the top of the schedule by myself with Meryl Ashley. And I went around asking people like, what is this? Like, I don't even know what this is. This is weird. And then, and then people were like, well, Sara, I mean, obviously it's for that. I was like,
you're not doing the Queen with Meryl, you know?
What?
You're not doing the Queen in Swan Lake with Meryl.
Right. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, this is not for that. Then I walked into the studio and Meryl was like, so Peter wants you to learn Swan Queen. I was like, oh, okay. So in that rehearsal, we went through the solos, and I mean, at that point, I was 19, but like I grew up knowing Swan Lake. Like one of the first things I did was the Four Little Swans when I was 7.5. And like, you know, I had done the White Swan Pas de Deux with my brother when I was like 10. And then I'd done Black Swan. Like it had been a part of like my upbringing. So like I obviously knew it really well. So it wasn't foreign to me. So the rehearsal process, I think, was like 2.5 weeks or something, or 2 weeks. And then I sort of like showed it to Peter. And I didn't really consider it an audition, but I guess it was. I don't know. I was just... And then he was like, all right, he told me like right in the rehearsal, like, this is when you're going to do it. And, you know, but then also I was originally doing it with Nilas Martins, his son. No. I was originally doing it with Asla Kaur. We were rehearsing it. And like a week before we were rehearsing Black Swan, and he landed from a jump and he landed right on his foot and broke his foot in the rehearsal. So then the week before leading up, I had to rehearse with a new partner. And then the 2 days before, I got the stomach flu. So I wasn't eating and I couldn't eat anything. And Peter was like, are you going to do the show? Like he kept calling and like, are you going to be able to do it? And I was like, well, I'm going to do it. Like I'm not going to let this stomach thing like prevent me from doing it. But I remember that was pretty terrible. My stomach was pretty terrible during that show. And I remember like having a Reese's or something before Black Swan, which was like the worst idea I could have done. Like that's
also like 19.
I know. I was like, why did I do that? That was so, and like during Black Swan, he was like making noises and I was like, oh my God, this is really bad.
But I feel like it's just such a Sara story. It's like, okay, like first principal role, hardest thing in the rep. Okay, check. Stomach flu, we got this. And, I'll just like throw a Reese's Pieces into it and then we'll do it.
I'm so stupid.
But for Pam, similarly, like my first time talking to you, I like was immediately struck with the things that I like kind of associate with your work, which is like you're fiercely intelligent, but you're very direct and honest, like no nonsense. And I remember this moment, we were on a panel and we were talking about, some like we were kind of giving that sort of like fluffy answer, like why do male choreographers get more opportunity? And there was like they understand partnering better. And then you immediately like clap back and you're just like, well, what about a point shoot that a woman is in for decades? Like we're just like overlooking that aspect of things, which I just loved that you were just like, let's cut the crap kind of. But I'm wondering, like, did this like honesty, how did that affect your early output? Like, did you ever, like now it's such a trait that you're admired for, but like, did it ever hurt any opportunity or what did you find any pushback from that?
I mean, you don't want to hear the story of how I first performed the Swan Queen?
Let's go. Take it to that.
No, I wasn't always like this, actually. I was, when I moved to New York, when I was 23, I guess, I think I just did everything myself. Like modern dancers are resourceful and scrappy, and if I wanted to show my work, I had to make it happen. Like there was nobody to do that for me. And actually nobody teaches you that. Like I got my undergraduate degree in dance at Ohio State. And it was, they don't teach you how to, no one teaches you how to be an artist really. And even at Sarah Lawrence, when I was there, it's like you just have to figure it out yourself. I know I'm not really answering your question, but I do. But just sidebar on this topic, when I go I teach at Rutgers University, and I meet college age students all the time, and they're always asking me, "How do you do it? How do you do it?" And I don't know how to answer it because I'm Gen X. I like analog. I did no internet, no cell phones. I used to call to my friends on the street to come, to go out at night. And I think and the reason why I'm saying this is because I was naive. So I just did things and I just kept doing things. And then by that, I was able to like gain confidence after 20 years, really. It's hard, but like my first show, I just called up, Dance Space Project, and I didn't ask for them to present me because I knew I wasn't ready. I said, "How much does it cost to rent your theater?" So, and I just took every single opportunity, and then so at a certain point, I just have been doing it so long that why not be direct? Why not just tell the truth? Why? And I think. Coming from the outside of ballet and now making things for ballet, it's not like that, great of an observation what I said, but because I come from the outside, I don't take anything for granted. I do that in my dances, and I do that how I present dances and all the things around that.
Right.
So, when someone's sitting there saying, well, women don't know how to partner. I'm like, well, do men know how to go on point shoes? I mean, they do, Trocadero, but you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's just not, it's not an answer.
Right. Yeah. So Sarah, I'm wondering, like we're talking about Pam, like finding her own voice. You've found a really unique voice outside of the company. And I'm curious to hear like of that origin. Like now you're probably like the most, choreographically curious dancer I know of. Like you're always trying to find different paths, and you've worked with so many choreographers who are not in the rep at New York City Ballet. So how did that path sort of start for you?
I mean, I guess it sort of started in the way that at New York City Ballet, like my first 10 years, I was put in a box, which is an amazing box to be in, which is the Balanchine box. But, it's after a while, and like choreographers would come in and they wouldn't see me, or they wouldn't be told to see me or look at me. And because I was doing those things,
you're busy,
and I wasn't really ready or dance like they wanted to for these new things. And I was like, all right, well, you know what? I'm just going to take it in my own hands now. Just like basically what she was saying, you know, it's like after a while, you're like, I'm going to do something about this. So actually, Dance Space in the city was the first place that I did something outside of ballet. And they actually were doing a platform where they were combining uptown dance with downtown dance, quote unquote. And so I was part of the uptown dance where I got paired with Jody Melnick and Rashawn Mitchell. And we had like no time, like negative time to like make something. So basically we went down like 2 days and we like went into the church space and we're in there for hours just doing something and making something. And Jody and Rashawn had come in with already a plan of like what they were going to have us do, ask us do, is going to be in the moment, spontaneous. And it was the first time that I had been asked to dance barefoot. I had been asked to dance with no music, to sort of create in the moment based off of phrases and material that I was given. So I was asked to actually create something on my own, which has never happened. And also dancing with people that I would never normally dance with. So it was sort of fascinating to me. And so that experience with Jody and Mitchell just sort of like was a snowball effect of like, oh my God, okay, I can be something else in a performance setting. I can do something else. I can feel something else. I can use my feet in a different way. So then the next thing I did was I asked Jody to do a residence with me at Jacob's Pillow. And because they had asked me, what do I want to do there? And that was the first time someone asked me outside of New York City Ballet to do something on my own. And so I obviously asked Jody because I was very comfortable with her. And that was in like 2015, I think. And so since then, it was just like one thing after another led to me to this, to this, to this, to her, to like, it just like everything. It just like, and then it was sort of like addicting.
Right.
Like outside of like, it was like on my layoffs from New York City Ballet, people would call me like a modern dancer because I would not put point shoes on. I would only do things that did not require like ballet or point. And I did that for a really long time and I'm still doing it. But like, it's just, I think it's really informative if you go outside your own little box. And I know Pam does this too, is like you get to experience other things and you might not be good at it. I mean, I'm not saying I was good at all those things and that they were successful, right? But you have to try these things and then bring it back to what you do every day. And I remember there was one time I did something, Jody, and she said, just lift your arm. You don't have to like perform it. Just lift your arm. You don't have to do anything else. Like that's just good enough. And I remember going out and doing diamonds after that at New York City Ballet. And I just was like, Sarah, just walk out on stage. You don't have to like perform it as you walk out on stage. You're already in like a massive theater with diamonds on and a tiara and a tutu and like every light on you. And the music is massive. It's Tchaikovsky. Like you can't compete with that. Just like walk out there and just be that. And that like, it just sort of like changed my way of like how to be on stage and like hold space instead of like trying to take it up where there's so many other factors. Just like be there. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of already answered my question that I was going to ask how that's impacted your work at home. But Pam, I think we could ask the same of you, like how, having these commissions with something like New York City Ballet, now when you go back to the dancers you've been working with for ages, like how does that impact the work you do with them?
That's a good question. It actually, it takes me a second to process things. So like when I'm going from project to project, that's what I'm doing. And so I know that it's inside somehow, but I'm not sure how it's impacted. But I think I actually think that the more I do, the more I realize I have to start a dance like I'm a beginner because I've never made that dance before. So instead of walking in and going, this is everything I've learned from this, and now I'm going to apply it to this, I actually think it's the opposite. I think I have to be like, okay, I've never made this dance before, so but also knowing that I'll be okay because of the things I've done,
Right.
even though I haven't done this. When I go into a new, but logistically speaking, I know I'm like not answering any of your questions. But technically or logistically or whatever, when I go to a new environment, it's more challenging for me because I have to be more articulate. When I am with my dancers, they can read my mind, particularly Melissa Toogood. So, I work on other things. But when I'm in a new environment, and dancers I don't know, I have to be careful about how much information I give right away. I don't want to give too much away, but I also want them to know there needs to be a little balance. So I'll teach them movement, and then I'll talk about my style a little bit with them. Then I'll ask them what they're like with Sara. Like the first time I worked with her, I was like, "Tell me your favorite roles. Tell me your favorite ballet steps." Nothing that like deep, but like it gives. It's a way to get to know someone, and part of my process is a full collaboration with the dancer. So I do come in with ideas and movement, but not necessarily a set way of performing that. So I would show, like Sara, some steps, and I would see how she's doing it instead of imposing a certain count. Like you have to get here on count 8. We would work on landmarks and things like that. And that's something I do with my dancers and other. Mm-hmm. So I do have that's interesting to me because ultimately my work is about the people in the room, in the studio, right? So it's not about me. It's about them. So that's sort of part of my process, I guess. Right. I don't know.
No, that's good. I want to hear, Sara, about a little bit about your dynamic with Pam in the studio. Was this the first time you'd worked together for the spring
We've
premiere?
done 2 projects.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the first project you guys did together?
The first project was
crazy.
Was that 2019? It was right.
18. It was an outdoor piece before the pandemic.
That was 18. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I had gotten to that point where the snowball was happening, and I was like, well, I want to work with Pam because I don't know when I'm going to get the chance. So I'm doing it. So basically I literally just I don't know how I got your number. I texted you. I reached out to her and I was like, we have to do something. I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to do something. And she was like, yes. So at the time we didn't have a venue. We didn't know.
We didn't have anything.
We didn't have anything. So we basically decided that we are going to go dance in a park. And she gathered some of her dancers, and then we got Taylor Stanley, me, and was there another outside dancer?
Well, it was Reed, but he's
right.
He sort of crosses.
Right, Reed
he's
me.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Costume designer.
It was also one of his dreams to dance with you, so I made that happen.
I remember him telling me this. Oh, he was so
excited.
He
said to me, he is an amazing dancer, but he's also a brilliant costume designer. And one of his dreams was to dance with Sara Mearns, and I said, "I love you, and I'm going to make that happen for you."
It was so funny. So basically, we just, I don't know. We reached out to Lower Manhattan.
Well, I actually am going to remind you. You said to me, "I don't want to." You couched it like this: "I want to work with you, but I don't want to dance in a theater. I don't." You told me a list of things you didn't want to do. No, this is important because then I said, okay, and then we thought maybe a museum or outside because you were very specific in what you didn't want to do because you wanted to do something different. And I think that's actually really important.
Right, that's true, yeah. Because I didn't want to dance in a proscenium setting because I'm so used to that, and that it creates a boundary between audience and artists and dancers. And I wanted to experience something where we were mixing and somehow we all became part of the audience at one point, or they could get as close as they wanted to, and so
which happened, which was crazy.
Which ultimately it was nuts. So basically we were able to get a park setting downtown on the river, and we didn't have that long to make it. And honestly, like we had to actually like really make it in the park because it's so specific on what you can do in a park, and shoes and like spacing and
I had these I made platforms in the grass covered with AstroTurf.
Yes.
So it would like meld into the grass, which I was like,
it was pretty fascinating. So then the first show, and obviously we have to deal with the weather, right? So that's always a thing when you're outside. You're like, oh God, man. So our worst nightmare happened in our first show. Got canceled because of rain. And then the second day was still like the rain day. It was still like, oh man, it looks like it's going to rain. And it was raining. And so we were about to call it off.
And then
45 minutes before, it was like not that bad. And we were like, we're doing it. We're doing it. We're going to call it. We're doing it. And we like blasted it on social media and like said, it's still happening. Please come down. We're doing this.
And people came.
Oh yeah. There was like hundreds of people
there.
They loved it. But like, it was that experience where like it's funny. Like when you put audience members in these situations, they have no boundaries. And
I was shocked.
They want to be like with you dancing. So there were points where like we had to push through people and had to like just deal with it. And that's also like in the moment of dealing with a performance aspect that I had never done before, and it was pretty awesome. Yeah, it was still raining and like it was weird. It was like misty and everything.
It was so weird because I conceived it. I thought the audience was going to be close, like around. And so in these platforms, they actually infiltrated instead of staying on the perimeter.
Yeah.
And I was shocked. And then I also made it with the idea that it started like 45 minutes before the sunset. So I wanted it to be sunny. And then as it ended, and everyone was in a line and it was going to end in the sunset. Mm-hmm. But that didn't happen because it was all really gray and dark. So the piece ended up being really dark and mysterious and had this
there was fog everywhere.
There was fog. It was so dramatic. It changed the whole idea of the piece, and it was better.
Yeah.
It was really exciting, but we only did it once.
I know.
So maybe a revival with a sunset, just to see.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. But that was the first time, so it was Sara with a group. And I also thought it was interesting because up until that point, I only had known you to do new work as a soloist or like with one or two other dancers, but I just threw her in my group of dancers and Taylor Stanley. So it was a different dynamic. And I think that was interesting. And you loved it. I had a feeling too. I was like, Sara, like it was, I think, fun for you to be with more people and not to be so lonely. Like, I think that's interesting. Yeah. No, it's important.
Yeah. You want to like, I love dancing alone and being obviously the head of a group, but like there is something about dancing with people that I missed and that like I wanted to be part of this group, and I still try to find those opportunities just because it informs you and like you, I don't know, it informs your
artistry.
You
dance differently too.
So interesting. Yeah. I mean, I've talked about this with other principals, and I definitely I was in the Court of Ballet my whole life, and it was such a wonderful thing. Like anytime you felt nervous or uncomfortable, like you could look across at your peers and feel immediately like at home. But for you, like especially for you, because you started with Swan Lake and then was immediately, you were immediately in all that rep that's just like at the head. So this would have been a while of you, like almost 10 years of you just like doing that kind of stuff. So what was it like? Was that change immediately like comforting, or did it take a while to warm up to?
No, it was so comforting. I mean, I almost like took like a back seat finally, just being like, all right, I'm just going to follow you guys. I'm just going to follow what's happening here. And it's almost like I didn't want to be alone.
Right.
And it became sort of addicting. Cause like, I have been out there alone a lot,
right.
And it's a different feeling. And yes, you can own things more and own things in the space in a different way. But you need to always collaborate with people. You can't lose that as an artist.
Right. I want to go back to, I thought this was interesting, Sara setting like a couple of parameters for you, Pam. I'm wondering.
Yeah, I love that. I love like solving problems.
Right. So has there ever been a situation where you had, like, what's the range there? Like, when people commission you, are they like, we need you to use this music at this theater with these people? Or is it like, does it ever feel daunting in the opposite extreme where it's just like, do whatever, Pam?
Yeah, I actually like parameters. I like, it is hard. I mean, because you're making something from nothing. So when someone says how would you, and no one's ever said you have to. Like when David Hallberg called me for Australian Ballet, he said, I would love for you to come and be my first commission, but the other piece on the ballet on the program is Serenade, so I would love for you to use a lot of men because because I want to use the men. And I could have said no, but I thought, oh, that's interesting. So the piece, and then I thought, okay, well, what if I did the reverse of Serenade and I used 17 men and 3 women, I think. I can't remember the exact. There was like questions about how many each. Do you know the?
17,
is that right?
17 women plus the three principals.
It's not an even number.
Right. So I not only do I get not only do I solve a problem, but I also solve it artistically. Right. So that's what's interesting to me. Like here at Vail Dance Festival, I have this piece where it was going to be 2 dancers on point shoes, but one of them just had surgery. And she can't really be in point shoes, and I'm not about to ruin her career and make her wear point shoes. So now she's in flat shoes. So I said, okay, let's do this. Let's reverse what you were going to do in flat shoes, make an adagio, do it behind the person who's you know what I mean? And so to me, it's exciting. I mean, I'm not happy that she can't be in point shoes, but I work with what I have.
Mm-hmm. That's a real
I think
Pam
it's
trait.
scarier when somebody says do whatever you want. Like you all of a sudden are just like, well, I don't know what to do.
Right.
Like there's so many options. So it's really like much better when they say, okay, this is what you have. This is the amount of time you have. This is how many dancers you have. Could you use this type of music or whatever else on the program? And then it informs you of like lighting, space.
Right.
It's like you can't just be like wide open. That's
right.
like, really scary.
But that being said, I'm bad also because like at Royal Ballet, I made a piece where I said it would only be 6 dancers, and then I had all these understudies in the room, and I loved them, and every day I kept adding them into the piece, and it ended up being 12. And Kevin O'Hare was like, I hope nothing happened. You know what I mean?
Right.
And something else happened. Well, you get the idea.
Mm-hmm. But I think that happens with you a lot where you're just like an idea strikes you and then you'll be like, oh, well, let's just do this. I mean, I remember hearing about you deciding you came up the mountain to Vail Dance Festival and Patricia Delgado was in the car with you. And then you just like got along with her and you were like, why don't I make something for you and it'll be on point because I want to, do that.
To experiment with that.
Like that sort of like, when inspiration strikes, like you go with it. That's not every choreographer. Like a lot of people need to be really thought out and studied, but you'll just go with the moment.
Well, because I'm not precious and Sarah couldn't talk. Like in a way, I'm not precious about not everything I think of is good and I can throw it out. Like, I think, and I actually learned that from one of my mentors, Viola Farber, who is a founding member of the Merce Cunningham company. Like you just make stuff. Like, and I've said this before. Like, I have movement like swatches of stuff and movement like swatches of fabric. And like, if this isn't working, we'll change it to this. Let's try it this way. And I think I actually can answer your first question now. I just thought of something.
Okay.
I think as I get older, I know what to leave out. I think when I was a younger choreographer, I wanted to like show stuff or like put everything in. And I think as I know what to leave out now. And I think that's important. So yeah, that's the answer to your first question.
Yes, it's very important as a choreographer. The many choreographers I've worked with is the editing.
Yeah,
it's they get excited and they want to have they have all these ideas, and you're just like, as like the muse or the person that's trying to like implement it, you're like, I don't think that's gonna work, or like, but you can't say anything, and that's the hard thing, right? Is like you can't always tell the choreographers like yes or no. You just like have to do, and then they have to figure it out. So but it takes time.
Yeah, it takes time.
Like it takes years and years to do that. But it's great when you get somebody that like can visually see it and come back the next day and be like, you know what? No, we're not going to do that.
Right.
We're going to do something else, or this is better. And it's really great to work with somebody like that can self-edit.
So, Sarah, you have immersed yourself in so many different like choreographic voices, and you're really experimental in that way. But did it ever strike you to create work? Like, would you ever consider that, or you don't have the? Yeah, I understand. No, I mean,
I don't know. I've gotten that question many times, and I know that a lot of artists in my community and everybody are choreographing, and I think it's a great thing and a great way to use their artistry and have another tool in their box. But I enjoy too much being on the other side of it and being the collaborator that like takes the work and does something with it, or I don't know. That side of it already is exhausting to me, and it's a lot to deal with and put on and take in as like a person. So I can't imagine like also being on the like choreographic side. It's way too much. But yeah, I'd rather be like the
maybe later
muse choreographer.
But it's not. It's. I was going to say something really good. It's a different part of the. I love that you're saying that, because that's where you're like, you feel like, if I'm hearing this right, your true artistic expression is in the way that you take a choreographer's ideas and filter it through your body. And not everyone can do that. Like, it's a different part of your brain. Mm-hmm. It's like saying, like, just because you're an amazing dancer doesn't mean you're going to be an amazing choreographer or an amazing teacher. There's amazing teachers that were never great performers, but they're incredible teachers. Like, it's just because you're one doesn't mean you shouldn't try if you wanted to either. But it's like people assume, and I think like it's like different parts of your brain that to access that. And I think it's interesting.
I think you've hit upon something there, because I feel like the dance world is very, it's like the only art world I can think of where it is like that, where it's like, well, you were an amazing dancer, so let's just like install you as director, or like now you stage ballets or whatever. But like, a great Shakespearean coach didn't necessarily have to do Macbeth themselves.
Correct. They could. I mean, I've been which isn't to say that a dancer in a company can't absorb what's going on and then become a great choreographer themselves. Like, it's not like there's rules ever, but it doesn't really. I mean, you can't just become something,
right?
Like, I've been making dances for almost 30 years, right? So like, it takes a long time. Mm-hmm. Just like Sarah's been dancing her whole life.
Right.
Dedicated her whole life. Someone's not going to just come on and do Swan Lake. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
But people, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I wonder, why do you think it is in our industry that maybe we have that expectation, like as opposed to, Spielberg was never an actor, or, great conductors maybe weren't great musicians. Why do you think we have that issue maybe?
I have no idea.
I don't have the answer.
Maybe it's because the lifespan of the dancer is so short that they need
something, another outlet.
Career.
Okay, interesting.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's just a guess.
Right.
And people already ask me, what are you going to do after you're done dancing? I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm not done dancing yet. You know what I mean? Like,
aggressive.
I'm not.
Like, they just probably just want to know. But like, it's a lot. Like, it's
they're like, are you going to teach? Are you going to like do this? And I'm like, I don't know if I want to teach either, because I'm still in it. I'm still learning every single day about my body, about the technique, about dancing, about performing. It's like, I'm so immersed in it myself that it's hard for me to give out.
Right.
And that's going to take time as well. And like she said, like a good teacher, like they're rare, because it takes so many years to become that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's like, and also if you invest all of your energy and your best energy into this one thing, then you can make it the best it can be, instead of like putting all of your energy in like 5 different things.
Right.
like just hone it in on this one thing and make it the best.
Yeah, preaching to the choir here. You can figure it out when you're done. When you're done, you're done. You figure it out then. Let's talk a little bit about what you were both up to here at the Vail Dance Festival. Pam, what are you making for us?
Well, I'm making 2 dances. I was hired to make one, and then I sort of begged Damien if I could push another one in. So I'm making a duet with Melissa Toogood and Herman Cornejo. And it has music by Meredith Monk and a pop song called "Where Did You Go to, My Lovely?" I have Kate Davis and Caroline Shaw working on the music. I've never worked with Melissa's in my company. Herman is my first time, so I think that's really interesting. Musically, it's different for me. What else can I say? Do you have any questions about it?
No.
To be honest, I only had one rehearsal so far.
So, that's something that is classic Vail, too.
Classic.
But is that something you like kind of down to the wire? Or do you like to have
I
your
act
works?
like I don't, but I think I do. Honestly, I think that you make different dances with different... if someone said to you, you have a week to make a dance, that's the dance that you're going to make in the week. If someone said you have 3 months to make that same dance, it's a different dance. So instead of getting stressed out about it, I still do, I could be lying to you right now, but what I like to believe is that I'm okay, this is what I'm doing. This is the materials I'm working with, and this is what it's going to be in a week. And this is the dance. So yeah,
I will tell you, this is amazing. She does get very stressed out, but the thing is that she's able to process everything that's happening and be like, okay, what she's able to crisis manage. It's really great. So, an example.
Ooh, I want to hear
in the spring.
Oh my god.
Okay, with the piece at New York City Ballet, we've been making it and rehearsal weeks, she had her full cast, and then all of a sudden things started to unravel and dancers were starting to get taken away from her and put in other ballets, and then casting started to change. And then all of a sudden we had half as many people. And then every day she came in, she's like, you know what? No, this is okay. These are the dancers we have and we're going to make it work.
And they're amazing.
We're going to change the trio to a duet. And then the genders are not going to matter. There's, she's going to be in this one, he's going to be in this one, blah, blah, blah. And then it just actually kept on getting, the situation just kept on getting worse, because then dancers started getting COVID. And then we also had another injury. So, it literally, I could not believe what she was handling, the days leading up to the show. And somehow we were all just we're going to get on stage. This is going to happen. We're somehow going to get there. And we did. And she just every day it was something that we just had to change and morph. And she made it happen. And it was fascinating that anybody else would have crumbled under that pressure.
I almost did though. It was almost too much for me to bear. The day that...
I know, but you stayed in the theater.
Yeah, I did.
She didn't come on stage because she was so stressed out. So the dancers just stayed on the stage, and she just stayed in the theater, in the dark theater, and dealt with her stress crumbling because she didn't want to put it on us.
Oh yeah, no, I would never do that.
And it was just an amazing experience in that way, because we were all dealing with it, but we all as a collective were making it happen to get on stage, and she just dealt with the situation as it was happening.
I think that just goes back to you not being precious and being flexible in that,
Yeah. And even Glenn, my ballet mistress, so dramatic ballet mistress. She I've worked with her for a couple of years now, and I think she was saw me and was oh my God, for the first time, she thought I was going to lose it. Just very, very at the end. But I held it in. I totally held it in.
Yeah, that was amazing.
As an audience member, I didn't get to see that work because it ultimately was overwhelmed by
barely
COVID.
anybody saw it.
Yeah. Well, it'll make its way back. But I did see Gustave Le Gray with 3 people instead of 4. But I had seen it with 4 as well.
But I re-choreographed that on Zoom in Venice.
But I loved it. I mean, because I couldn't.
People
I didn't
said
have,
they liked it. I know. I got text.
I'd only seen it the one time, and it had been a few years prior. And when I saw it with the 3 people, I thought, like, I can't imagine it with the 4 now. I thought it was really.
Yeah.
And Daniel Applebaum, who was in the cast, was like, "Well, he's trying to explain to me the difference." But I was like, "Now it's I like it in this new incarnation."
I think it goes back to what Sarah was talking about. I think the dancers knew they had to get that. Can I curse on this?
Which
Can I
word?
say shit?
Yeah. Okay.
They knew they had to get that shit together. Like I wasn't even there. I was like re-choreographing, but I think it's what Sarah said about the New York City Ballet dancers coming together and like just getting the shit done.
Yep.
And I had a friend write to me saying the dancers were electric who saw it. And I think that's what you were seeing. I don't know if the choreography was so great, but I actually think you were seeing the electric dancers pulling together.
So for the other work, because you did have to make so many changes, when it makes its way back to the stage, what version are you going to end up with? Or do you want to go back to the original, or were there things you liked?
Oh, no. I mean, I'm going back to the original because Mira never got to do it. Who else didn't get to do it?
Many people.
Many people.
I don't know. I keep texting Wendy to put it on. I'm like, put it on next year. She's like, I can't. It's too booked up. I was like, no. But she actually wrote, we need to put Law Mosaics on as it was supposed to be seen.
Yeah. Right.
And it'll happen.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Sarah's incredible in it.
I love
Just
that
FYI, if you're going to ask that question, she's incredible.
Is Sarah incredible in it? Yes.
Yes. The piece was based on Sarah and Russell. Like it's anchored by a duet with Sarah and Russell Jansen, and then Sarah solo at the end. And then, I mean, everyone is incredible in it. But those were the things that happened first because I actually got to work with them during the pandemic on Zoom. So that the movement for Sarah and the movement for Russell. Oh, Russell has a solo also that's incredible. That's within the duet. So it's an interesting structure. But Sarah and Russell were my touchstones for that work, and I was incredibly lucky to work with them. Their movement is very deep because it was worked on like for 2 years on and off during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Before we open up to audience questions, I do want to hear a little bit about what you are dancing at the Vail Dance Festival, Sarah.
Why am I dancing? I will say I've had some history with the Vail Dance Festival. The first time I came, I had a very, very hard schedule, and I was not able to finish my shows because I got the mountain sickness and I went to the hospital. So now, ever since then, Damien's been like, okay, what are we going to do? We have to keep you healthy and not in the hospital. So what does that mean? And even when he emailed me this past year, I was like, are you sure you want me to come back? Are you sure about this? I feel like I'm a liability. But he was like, no, you're coming. And I was like, okay. So basically the Vail, like this festival, like sort of feeds on like things happening here. And like what you're saying is like things happen in the moment. And like, and I told Damien, I was like, I don't think I can do that. I think I need to know what I'm doing before I come. And it's like worked on and ready to go. So I'm doing a new solo by Bobbi Jene Smith, who I worked with her during the pandemic. One of the many dance films that we all did during the pandemic. I did one with her, and I knew that I wanted to work with her again and like actually physically do her work on stage live. So we made it in the city, and it's about 6.5 minutes. And the singer is this amazing opera singer, Devon Tynes. Is that how you say his name? Okay. Well, he's an amazing, amazing opera singer, and he's going to be on stage with me singing. And I think it's like 5 prayers that Caroline Shaw composed, and so he's going to sing them. And then the other piece is another piece that was created during the pandemic by Christopher Wheeldon. It was a pas-de-deux that he created on myself and David Hallberg for the New York City Center's Fall for Dance virtual, music by Joni Mitchell. And it was a very special thing because David and I always wanted to dance together and we never got to. And, he retired, and then, we were like, we needed to do something in the pandemic. So we made this, and it was very special. So we're doing the pas de deux part of that, and I'm dancing it with Robbie Fairchild. And I believe Kate Davis is going to sing it live.
So excited.
Kate's voice.
I'm actually so excited to. Well, I love working with Caroline. Obviously, she's amazing, but I haven't worked with Kate before. So I'm really excited for that.
Like
Yeah, her
everybody's
voice
walking
is so
around being
special.
like, Kate. So we're all very lucky to be having Kate here.
Great. Well, I'm sure that some people in the audience have a few questions for you guys, so we could throw it over here.
Pam, could you talk a little bit about your work on four quartets and how you came to that material?
It's sort of a long story, but I'll try to do bullet points. I walked around with that book for at least a decade. I just, loved the poem. Cut to my first show at Bard in 2015. I did a piece called Broken Story, and then in parentheses, wherein there's no ecstasy, which is a line from Four Quartets. And so and then Broken Story was a title of a J.D. Salinger short story that I found in the New Yorker. And I put Salinger and Eliot together for this title. And the artistic director came up to me and said, what is your title? Like, what did you do? Like, where'd you get it from? And I told him about Four Quartets, and he also loves Four Quartets. And we were having bagels and coffee upstate New York, and I go to the bathroom, I come back, and Gideon he had looked up when the anniversary of the Four Quartets. He's like, 2018, let's do it. Let's make a piece. And I was like, what? You want me to make a dance to this? Or like, what? I don't even know what that would be. But I just said yes because I actually didn't think it would ever happen. So I said, sure, I'll do it. And then all of a sudden it became real. And then we found a composer. And then we had to get permission from the Eliot estate. And we were the only ones that got it. Like we're the only ones that have ever been given permission to use it in a performance like this. But the rule was a rule. We could not manipulate it. So I had to use it as is. Then we went searching for an actress, and we met Kathleen Chalfant, who's, she's royalty. Beyond. She's amazing. It just sort of all came together in this really organic way. Bryce Martin lives upstate. So he lives like 5-10 minutes away from Bard. So that's sort of, so everything sort of like came together in this really interesting way. I ended up doing this trip. Gideon Lester and I took a trip to all the places. So we went to all the places in Four Quartets, which was incredible. There was a lot of research. I can talk to you about it privately if you want, but there was a lot that went into it. I don't know if that helped, but.
Yeah. Other questions right here?
Yeah, Sarah, this past year you were in Twyla Tharp show doing the choreography that was done for Baryshnikov. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what that was like, doing that choreography. First that had been done on a man and then on Baryshnikov.
That was a very, very tall order, for sure. Of course, Misha, I'm very lucky that Misha is one of my mentors, and he's always been there since the beginning for me. And I just thought, oh my God, this is like such an honor to like be stepping into his shoes and in this way. And I knew going into it, I was like, all right, I can't like compare myself to this, right? Like I can't do it like Misha. There's no possible way. So don't even put that in your head because you're just going to fail. So we learned it off of this one specific tape, that the only recording they had of it when they were on tour together. It was like in the middle of their tour. And it's so fascinating, but she wanted me to learn it exactly like he was doing it on that recording, which could have been one of 50 versions that he had done. Sure. But she wanted that specific one, and how they connected specifically on that one, like timing wise, musicality, anything which I thought was also fascinating. So then I learned it, and then I just sort of like took it and like did my own thing. And I was able to speak to Misha briefly about it. But he didn't want to give me too much because, again, it's like he wanted me to do what I wanted with it. And Twyla was a huge help, but also because it was his stuff, it was a little bit harder for her to coach me. She coached Robbie, obviously, on his part because it was her. But it was really fun in that way to like not have to be like girly, but to be like this like not macho, but like very reserved like thing. And then I got to learn that a lot. The bigger soul in the middle was a compilation of all the stuff that he had done in his career, and like how do I do that? But it did take a lot of rehearsal and a lot of prep and a lot of research and a lot of just like being by myself with the material and what was I going to do with it. I really want to do it again in another setting. Robbie and I would love to do it again in another setting just because it was such a pressure cooker to get it out there in front of everybody. And we were really nervous that like, this is a big deal. And so we would love to maybe do it again.
You better.
At the Vail Dance Festival.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, don't tell Damien. He'll make you do it.
Book it
It'll
now.
be going next week.
I will say it's one of the hardest things I've ever done. I don't know how Misha did that like every day. Like I died. Like it is so hard. But also what's interesting is that he had a bad knee at the time. I don't think it was his right knee. So everything is pushing off from the left knee. And it was fascinating. Like because, and then he would do like a right manège. He would go around to the right, but be turning to the left as he was going to the right. So he would push off his left knee. It was like, so weird, but like, learning those little tidbits of like, why is this? But, in the moment when he's like 50 years old, you have to, that's where he was with his body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
It's history. I love that.
I think we could probably do one more question before we wrap up. Bruce?
I have a very weird thought. So, for Pam. So, we had Lamone here a couple of days ago. 50 years after he died. Still there. Is the Balanchine Trust. You had to deal with the Elliott estate. What's going to happen with the Tanowitz Trust?
Oh, I don't know. I actually, I don't know, but I'm in conversation with Linda Murray at the library. We're talking about my archives. Like she's always telling me to keep stuff. Melissa, too good to keep things. I'm in the process of putting, this is like, it's not a secret, but I'm working with people to put together a scrapbook of sorts. But I don't know about my dances. I don't know yet. It's not a weird question, actually. I hope that they'll be performed when I'm not here.
They will.
They will be, Pam.
I wanted to say something about Sara. Like I think it's so great how you learned like the gender change of the Misha. Like it really goes with your whole. It really does relate to your choreography, experiments and being curious with other choreographers and then taking on a different gender role. I think it all just sort of really speaks to how, what you said in the beginning about Sara, how curious and, fearless. And that's why I wanted to work with you. When you asked me, I was so excited. I feel like our work in the ballet we just did sort of does encapsulate like why I wanted to work with you. Like Sara was like, I want to be barefoot. And I'm like, I want you doing barefoot bourrées. Do you know what I mean? And just that says everything,
I know, walking out there. Yeah. Like walking out there on the New York City Ballet stage with a solo created for me barefoot, like having that feeling of walking out being like, oh my God, this is happening. Like, this is so weird. Like, this is not something I would have seen, 20 years ago. Like, this is like I don't know. It shouldn't be like, I can't find the word. It's just like, it should be happening more. Like, it should be a thing. It shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, she's barefoot on the New York City Ballet stage, you know? But that's sort of what, like,
But it makes sense for you. It wouldn't, I don't know if it would make sense for another dancer, but it made sense for you because of everything that you're doing. So, like, it didn't feel random. It felt like related to you, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I hope that ballet gets back out on stage because I'm really sad that I missed it. I am. But we're so excited to see you perform this year at the festival and to see Pam's 2 new premieres. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks.